Shall we crown this thing and give it its legs? Yeah, we're going to crown it and give it its legs. Hey, welcome back to the shop and the channel. So now we're going to do some, I guess, real finicky bits. Yeah, real finicky bits. So here is the crown molding in its somewhat finished form. See that? You know, a little bead on it. Interesting thing is installing this. I'm doing it by myself, so I need an extra pair of hands. Here's my extra pair of hands. I'll show you that in a minute. First, I want to show you the top. When I did the video, when I just put this really cherry veneer plywood on top, I didn't show you the top. So let me just show you the top real quick. Cherry, pretty. It'll get a finish too. And like I said, eyeball, you can see over the crown molding. So, cherry veneer plywood. Let's get on to the crown molding edition. Or as we like to say, and I've repeated many times, the finicky bits. So what did I mean by the helping hands? So these are actually cut at 52 degrees from the vertical, this way, because it's the other side of 38, because the piece of the molding that goes against here is 38 degrees, but the lean is actually 52. So what I'm going to do, here's a piece of my test stuff that mimics the cherry exactly. So I'm going to take these with some hot glue. Going to hot glue them on here like that, exactly where I want the crown molding to end up. And that way, I have 3 of them go along here, and that way I can lay the crown molding up here, make the first cut, always make the first cut, hold it there, come over here and make a mark for the second cut, and then sneak up on that until I get the corner exactly to this corner to this corner. Once that one's done, I can put the backing strip on it and fasten it in place. Now the other ones, the ones that go along the side here, let me grab one. I don't really need a lot of helping hands. What I need to do is cut this corner here to get this one correct, and then mount it up in place, and then just take my Japanese pull saw, dazoke, and just cut through here to end it against the wall, because it's going to die against the wall. So let's get busy with that in a second. Oh, but wait a minute. I have staked the feet. So I've put in the studs. You've seen these before. What goes in here is wood thread. Here is 5/16 18 thread. And I have to cut this off at 3/4 of an inch because that's how thick the wood is it's going through. And I don't want this sticking up into the cabinet because it might hang up on the bottom drawers. And then there's, of course, the threaded insert that'll be fastened into the 3/4 inch plywood at the bottom. It'll still be able to ride on the dollies that I have once the feet are put in place. And the fact that this comes apart in 2 pieces and allows me to take this lower cabinet half, put it up on the bench and do that work, and then bring it back down and put the whole thing together again. As far as finish is concerned, I know I'm getting ahead of myself. As far as finishing is concerned, I do have an HVLP sprayer, and I think I'm probably going to spray this with the shellac, because if you brush on shellac or you dab it on with a pad, you can get runs. And yeah, it's alcohol. You can take some alcohol and you can just smooth that out. It's easier just if you just do it with a sprayer. It dries in 20 minutes. Dries and the alcohol evaporates away. And it dries in 20 minutes at the most. And then one coat of that, and then we'll go on with everything else. So for now, what I want to do is I want to get that crown molding in place. The finicky bits. This is where you got to be very careful. And now everything is self-explanatory. You can see I've got my little helpers up there to help out. If I turn it this way and zoom in, oh, it really makes sense now. So the bead hides the plywood, and then you've got this nice curve. And there's that straight across for the eyeball. And you can still see the top. And now it's time to cut the very first miter cut for this piece of crown molding, and it's going to be at that end over there. Now, the slightly confusing but not confusing part of using cut and crown. Now, I know that I've been looking, there's many other jigs out here to do something similar to this. I think this is the first one I ever saw on the marketplace years ago when I bought it. So you have inside right and outside left, and outside left and outside right. Well, we're doing outside miters, left and right. So when you're cutting it, this is the outside right side, this is the outside left side. So when you're looking at the front of the piece, that's the left. But that's the really only confusing thing. So the first cut is going to be this side here, and then the second cut will be the other end. You look at the picture I showed in the last video. When you're doing outside left, the jig is sloped toward the miter saw fence. The crown molding has the profile facing upward and upside down. In other words, the bottom is facing you. When you're doing outside right, the slope is facing away from the fence. The crown molding is now upside down. In other words, the profile is facing away from you. You're just looking at the back of it. And the bottom of the crown molding is at the bottom of the jig. Hope that makes sense from this picture. And that's how we're going to cut this crown molding. So the first thing is this one. I'm setting this up with a block on the other side of the down here on my workbench so that it doesn't jiggle joggle around place. It holds it up for the long piece. The short pieces aren't a real big deal. So let's make the first cut, and hopefully I get it right the first time. Luckily I've got a little extra. First cut, outside right, which is the left side of the top of the cabinet as I confusingly showed you earlier. Cut and crown is set with the slope away from the fence. The crown molding is upside down with the profile facing inward. And I'm going to come along here, scoot. I've got the laser set up on this side of the blade. So now we're going to make the very first cut. All right, let's see how this looks on the cabinet. Looky there. Just perfect. And the other one, of course, will be cut to match that at a later date. But now I got to get the other side done. I'll go ahead and get that done, and then we'll match these up. For the backing that's going to hold the crown molding on, I'm using some pieces of 1/2-inch cherry left over, so it all matches. Even if you look up on top, you'll see, instead of seeing an off wood or a secondary wood holding the crown molding in place, it will be the cherry. So let's make the other cut. So to do the outside left, we flip the jig around so it's sloping down towards the fence. Grab the workpiece, and the workpiece needs to be set with the profile up and the bottom facing me. So I'll set this in place, and I've marked it. Got to hold it in place, and I'm going to sneak up on this. I've marked it right here. I'm going to sneak up on it. Get closer to that. You're kind of limited how close you can get to the blade because of the guard. I mean, I can hold the guard up like that, but that kind of leaves me vulnerable to getting hurt. So that's about where I want that cut. Back it up a little bit. See if we're going to be in the right. Oh, let's back it up just a little bit more. All right, let's make a cut. This better be right. Well, obviously the saw threw the piece back and it wound up in the trash. So let's take a look. First thing I do, I'm out of camera, I know, is line up this side where it belongs. Come back to here and see that I have, just a smidgen to take off to get it correct. So let's do that. that is perfect. Well, not perfect, you know what I mean. It's going to work. That's exactly where I want to make that cut. The next cut, of course, is going to be this corner here, and that's a outside right. So outside right, again, is the way we have it now. And there it is. I know you can't see it well in camera. I'll bring the camera over to get a better look. First miter, second miter, and there it is. That's the way it's going to look. I'll do the other one, and we'll start mounting these up. And these are the cherry pieces I'm going to use to back those up and mount them squarely to the to the top to give you that thing, the crown molding. As I said before in a previous video, let me bring the camera in and I'll show you something. The reason I glued up the bead here is I wanted a very fine detail line. I didn't want a big shadow line. If you look at the bead cutter, what the bead cutter cuts, it leaves this large line in here. I probably could have done that with this if I set up a jig for it, but I wanted it to be more delicate. I just wanted that just to be a fine line between the bead and the crown molding. So now we're going to put up the blocking that's going to hold the crown molding in place, and it's, you know, I mitered the corners so it fits nicely. I'm using this as my datum to where it's going to sit, and the first thing to do is to put some glue on this, not a lot, but because it's going to get nailed in place, and use the two-finger method. Get the glue down. There's some there, there, some there, some there, and some there. And then I've got this set where I want it, and I've got time to work. So I'll get this right there, right on that corner, like it should, and then bring the backer to where it needs to be, and I'll nail it on this side, this end first. Okay, and then the middle, and the end, and the middle, and the middle. Okay, that's that in place. And now I'll do the others when I'm ready to do the crown molding on that side. But basically, I want to get it up against, flush against the surface here, meet that miter joint where it should, and then nail this in place so I can put this crown molding up. Now the crown molding is going to be fastened in with glue and pins. I mean, you know, I'm not going to use many pins. The thing about pins are, I've got it set to drive the pin below the surface with a piece of towel or washcloth and an iron. I can steam those holes and they'll swell up and close a bit more, and then use a little bit of color. I've got some color-coded, color-keyed wood filler just to fill up those little tiny pinholes. You'll never see them. You'll never know they're there. So let's do the sides now. Okay, next of course is the crown, and that's going to be very careful. Got to be very careful with the crown. The first thing is going to be the front, because that's the datum, as I said. So I got to do the top front here first. So basically, I'm going to dab a little glue on here. Here, actually. And get it in there like so, and match it up with the corners so it's perfect. That looks good. And then Grab the pinner. Like this. And the glue stuck here, so I can just chisel that off, but there we go. Piece number 1 in place. Let's do the others. And with that, we have achieved crown molding. Let that cure, move, dry, whatever, and move on to the next thing. It's time to take it apart, put the bottom half up on the bench, and start doing the bottom part with the feet and all that, and the skirt boards. But there's the crown molding. Now I gotta peel off this glue. Turns out that chisel and a card scraper really gets that glue off of there very nicely. And this card scraper needs to be worked a little bit, and it's losing its burr, but that's nice. Did all 3, they're ready to go. Once again, the video is starting to get long. I want to try and shorten these videos up, but I just like putting out information and showing stuff. So there's that. So the next episode we'll do the feet and the skirt board on the bottom part of the cabinet. It'll be all apart and up on the bench and all that kind of good stuff. So until next time, make great things out of wood and make sure your card scrapers have good burrs.